the main thing that most people think when they're getting into the music industry. Because let's not talk about the old paradigm of it. Uh, like the remnants of it are not mostly still here.
Right.
I think when people think about what can lead them to where they want to be uh, in their kind of burgeoning music career, they think I will stay myself, and if people like that, and if I can hone that and kind of polish that, and then do it consistently and post, and then also have my visual presence up on social media, then number go up, right? Number
Mm-hmm.
go up on streams, number go up on socials, right? And to an extent, I think the thing that's hard to quantify is that you can't really put a metric on luck, right? In the age of
I wish.
virulence, you can't really say, even if you did everything, even if you've got a great hook to it, right? It's the catchiest thing anybody's ever heard. It's got a great beat, right? You've got a great performance on it. It's great. On paper, sure, it should do gangbusters, right? And then you post it and it doesn't. It doesn't do anything.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Welcome
sir.
back to the Indie Unplugged.
Thank you for having us.
Yes,
Absolutely.
sir.
Thank
Man,
you. Thank you. Thank you.
feels good to have the people in the building talk about some stuff tonight. Once again, I'm Vaughan, host of the Indie Unplugged. Tonight I got my man Derek Prez Jackson back.
Happy to be back. Happy to be back.
For sure.
Feels like home. Starting to feel like home.
Hey, I like that. I like that. And we got somebody I just met today, the co-founder that works with the Prez, Xavier. What's up, brother?
Thank you. Yeah, you're one of the only people this year that has gotten me out of the house. So I am happy to come out and talk, man.
Hey, let's do it. Let's do it. I like talking. So
Without a doubt. Yeah.
I'm all about, I talk too much. So
Same.
no,
Yeah, no doubt.
Same. Yeah, tonight is going to be a good night. Tonight we're going to talk
Without
about
doubt.
a lot of stuff. We got 5, I kind of look at my notes.
Okay, yeah.
We got 5 topics to talk about tonight. Oh man, I thought about these topics long and hard. I was like, what are we going to talk about tonight on this Indie Unplugged podcast?
What's going to get Prez talking again?
What's going to get Prez talking again? Yeah. So tonight we're going to get into a couple different things. There's no theme.
Okay.
No, it's just giving, the artists, the producers, the independent music community, all the things that they need to be successful, to be effective. So one of the things I want to start off with is talking about false expectations in the music industry. Do you believe that people have false expectations when they get into this space, to this world?
I think kind of inevitably, yes. The more that I think things start to shift to kind of this one-man army kind of mentality in the music industry, if that makes sense, as we start to move further and further away from kind of the big goal being to become a part of the big 3, yeah, there's going to be a lot of, okay, at what point does success come? What metrics should I use to count success? When am I not doing well? To what extent do you have to wear 70 hats instead of 60? I think all of those are things that kind of sweep the legs from people that don't really understand the newer trajectory of how things are starting to turn.
And just to clarify, when he says the big 3, he means Sony, Warner, Universal.
Oh, I'm
not
thinking about
Drake, Cole, and Kendrick. Just so
right
we're
now,
clear.
I feel like Muhammad Ali.
Right, just so we're clear. Just so we're clear.
Because I was about to ask, like, you talking about Cole?
Yeah,
That'd be crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
Cole and Kendrick.
But no,
Yeah.
Right. Okay, nah.
But to his point, yeah, like, I mean, I think to that point as well, there's a lot of false expectation there, but I also think that, not to speak like a conspiracy theorist, but I also think like some of that false expectation historically has kind of been by design. And I think that now we're seeing the challenges that false expectation introduces, but I say historically it's been by design because when you're talking about the expectations of artists, so much of the, I guess, energy of the music industry was built around stardom, right? And the allure of fame, right? Like you could get a lot of talented people to do a lot of things that weren't in their best interest by enticing them with fame and stardom. So I think that that's part of the contributing factor to that false expectation, right? Like, that you could just have everything you want to have simply by being somebody that people wanted to see or hear, which is, when you think about it, that's 1-to-1 of what these artists are dealing with today. The only difference is that all of the other work that they need to do now, that wasn't the case back then. Before the big three and their subsidiaries were basically doing all of the work. You really only needed to be a good face and a good voice for the most part. And because of that expectation and that standard, I think that that's kind of what's causing this trickle down effect now, where like now people expect that, well, that's all you still need to be. And you're going to be able to have everything that the superstars of old were able to obtain. And it's just not the case no more.
Yeah. I would. So, when I sit back and think about those false expectations, it's like you kind of hear about, hey, if as long as I get into the industry, I'm going to blow up overnight. Like I'm going to get into this world. Like I don't, are the days of overnight success, is there overnight success? Has there ever been an overnight success?
I mean, they say 10 years to an overnight success. 10 years of
nothing.
To an overnight success.
Because you hear about like artists and all of a sudden they're like, prime example, Tyler, right? Came out of like nowhere.
Right.
Blew up.
See, but now you
got a Grammy, new artist. Like
she has a Grammy?
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think she got it.
What?
Look, don't let me.
Still though,
I always got to look stuff up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I don't want to give crazy information.
Grammy nom rather.
Yeah, but she got something.
Right.
Either way,
with
that's
the Grammys.
Nuts. Yeah.
I mean, then you start to get into those industry plant conversations and those types of things. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say that I don't like to speak in like, in assurances and 100% and those type of things. But I don't personally believe that it's really possible for anybody to become a overnight success. I think that, for all intents and purpose, we don't know her entire backstory, but she's also not from here. She's not from the U.S. So, reasonable doubt. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I like to give artists reasonable doubt. I think all of the industry plant narrative isn't fair more times than not to some of the artists that have really been doing things for a very, very long time. There's always accusations of like nepotism or just the claim that people aren't really talented and they have all of these people behind them, people to do the marketing, people to do the songwriting, people to do the production. So they don't necessarily have to do anything except be willing to give up everything they own to the majors that is going to do all of it for them and just put them out in the spotlight. But I mean, wasn't that the industry of old? So it's like, What are we, what I'm saying? What are we really upset about? We're upset that we're upset that major labels are playing the same game that major labels have always played. I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, they've always played those games, right? And so having overnight success, I mean, it is 10 years, right? I mean, it takes time. It takes 10, give or take. I mean, but the reality is that it takes the hard work and the effort and the diligence behind the scenes in order to get to that spot. But yeah, she did. She won the inaugural Best African Music Performance.
Inaugural. So that means that's the first year they even doing
It's the first year they did it.
And gave it to her.
And she won it. Yeah.
No, like literally,
I guess.
Literally no shade to her. But yeah, it kind of sounds like I mean, look, we recognize that it feels almost like what was that term from back in the day when the Beatles took over America? What did they call that? The what invasion?
Oh, the British invasion.
The British invasion,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It feels like we're having an African invasion right now. right? Like how like Afro
Mm.
beats is kind of like taking
Afrobeats is the
over.
thing.
It's all the rage here in the US, right? So granted, I don't feel like they made a whole new category for the Beatles when that happened.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So, you know, I feel like for them to create that award specifically for that purpose seems a little weird to me, but I mean, whatever, you know. It's the
know,
Recording Academy.
you
More
know.
power to them. Bring all all the diversity we can get, if whatever.
Right.
And even if you got to cheat to achieve it, whatever.
Right. I mean, see, now I can go on a
Sorry.
whole thing with that.
I'm
Prayers.
sorry. I'm sorry.
I mean, I don't think there's overnight success. I think people have a false expectation that when they become an artist, that something's going to pop off real quick, and it doesn't necessarily happen that fast.
I've heard it described kind of like well obviously like it is just a kind of extreme form of the snowball effect, right?
Mhm.
You can become locally famous, I think, in a matter of months, right? You can become famous statewide in maybe a year or two,
Mhm.
right? But now, whereas the big three were kind of controlling when you popped nationally, now we have virulence, right? Now we have something went viral, right? It
Right.
might not have even been your best or your most profound work, but if it was the one that caught numbers,
Mhm.
the project that meant the most to you can still, like, you can absolutely achieve a degree of fame now, or notoriety at least, from something that you thought was a throwaway track. Did anybody really think that Doja Cat was gonna blow up off of Moo?
No,
Right?
it was mad catchy though. But
Oh,
no,
without a doubt.
but
But-
no, I did not think
Yeah.
she was gonna blow off with that song.
But like from that era, she has legitimate, like, non-joking songs. And I think it's really funny that I think when we look back historically, what people would say was kind of the thing that springboarded her career
Mhm.
kind of into being locally famous, same to kind of nationally recognized. It was off of a joke song,
Mhm.
right? But yeah, no, to the point that Prez was making, it doesn't really matter anymore. It's kind of just, okay, well, what was it that popped you
Mhm.
kind of into the national radar or the global radar even? What
Right.
was it? And it doesn't need to be kind of a meritus. It doesn't need to be merit based. It doesn't need to be your best work that gets you there. It just has to be what stuck, essentially.
Right.
Mhm.
And it can stuck for a lot of different reasons, right? I think, you know, I think that to that point, right, we can give a lot more credit to artists for kind of just doing themselves, right? Because some people could argue that in a situation like that, maybe Tyler, maybe Doja, Jack Harlow,
Mhm.
all of these artists.
He
who,
did blow it fast though.
See, but here's the thing. But we know
did.
that Jack Harlow was running the streets of Atlanta, running
Right.
in the streets of Atlanta,
Yeah.
not like running Atlanta, but he was operating heavily
Mhm.
in the streets of Atlanta for a long time, pushing his artistry. Like
Right.
these are things that we know locally long before he blew up and it just
Right.
kind of caught, right?
Mhm.
So, but and I think that there's something to give artists the credit to like look, if you're just doing your thing, going back to the false expectation, I think the false expectation comes from people who you know, I hadn't heard of you before, so you just blew up, which means that I can just blow up by just doing this.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Out of the blue.
Mhm.
And they think that it's gonna happen very, very fast. But for all intents and purpose, like most of them, most of the acts that we really know of that have any sort of staying power whatsoever, they were just doing them for a very, very, very long time. And they weren't necessarily doing anything different than what they were
Mhm.
already doing when they blew up.
Right.
It just so happened to be a moment where the virality of it caught. And, you know, for whatever reason that may be, whether it was, you know, the MySpace with Taylor Swift,
Mhm.
and Drake, really, because MySpace affected both of their careers,
Right.
or
Heavily.
whether it's TikTok for Tyler. You know,
Yeah.
you don't it's always going to be something, some sort of catalyst that causes this thing to pop for you more than it did, you know, for somebody else. But
Mhm.
the point is that I think for all the ones who have had any sort of like longevity in an actual career, they were ultimately just doing themselves first,
Right.
for however long they were.
I mean, do you think social media plays a big part in setting or at least communicating false expectations to music creatives? I mean, do you think that social media has an impact about what they see on social media? Because we never really see the true story, right? We never see the behind the scenes. We see the glitz, the glam. We see whatever is presentable on any type of social media platform. But do you think that plays a part in the false expectations of the music industry?
It's like a 10x of TV, as far as I can tell. I mean, because it's not like the
Right.
TV ever told us the truth about what was going on behind the
Of course
scenes
not.
until Unsung came out.
Right.
You
Right,
know what I mean?
exactly.
And that's years after all of that fallout has already taken place, right? So I mean, social media is just it's because it's so omnipresent and so like nonstop 24/7. That maybe that there's definitely a contributing factor there. But I think that the conditions for it aren't unique to social media. No.
When you say the conditions for it, what do you mean?
So, we can take it back to our first conversation. When we talk about the fact that the business model of media is sales, right? Like if the business model of media is sales, that means that I'm showing you a finished product, right? Like I didn't tell you, you know what I'm saying? Like I didn't tell you what all went into making this sausage before you decided to put it on your plate.
True.
And if you actually looked into what went into making that sausage, you probably wouldn't eat that sausage. Right? But there's a lot of people who never looked into that. They just like, that's a tasty sausage. You know what I mean? And they made it look all good. They got the steam coming off of it and they got the condiments on it and it's got good lighting. You know what I mean? So that's what
they do. They do be making them look good though.
They do.
Commercial.
They sure do.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. And
that's
that's how they draw
slaughterhouses though.
But see, that's how they draw you in there, right? They make it look appealing. They make it look presentable. They make it look desirable. And they say, oh, you want this, but you don't know there's glue on top of those sesame seeds sticking them to the buns, right?
Or wax on the apples.
Right. Or that is exactly, or that is actual motor oil being poured on pancakes. It ain't really syrup, but it's the deception. It's like, oh, this looks easy. It looks like you can come into the music industry and have some songs and have some type of success. But the reality is that it takes a lot of hard work to be in this industry. I mean, there's a lot of people, and I don't want to say a lot, like it's not like I know a lot of people out there that have this opinion, but when I look at the landscape and I listen to others talk about the music industry, there is a sense of if I just do X, Y, and Z, then I'm going to make it. But not necessarily does that mean that I'm going to make it. Everybody's situations and conditions are different, right? Which is going to get me into the next one that we're going to talk about here in just in a moment. But they're different for everybody, right? My path is different than your path, and it's different than your path. What works for you may not work for me, and may not work for you. So for me to come into this industry to say, I have these set of expectations about how certain things should go. I think the first thing is, do they have expectations for their career, right? As an independent artist, producer, singer, songwriter, whatever it may be. What do I truly expect of this industry when I get into it? Am I willing to really commit myself to it? Or am I asking the industry am I asking for the industry to rescue me by the false hope of what I perceive to be what the industry is offering, if that makes sense, right? And so I think a lot of people get into it. We talked about hobbyists, right? I think a lot of people get into it, have a hobbyist mentality, and they don't. The mentality of those individuals that, okay, if I just do this, and this, it may go viral. Oh, I put this song up last night. How come it ain't go viral? Well, I don't think that's the way it works. Well, it probably is the way that it works.
But it's really not, though.
But it's really not. Right? I don't think that's the way. That's the way we are looking at Xavier.
You want to take this one?
He looked like he's thinking
Yeah,
about some
sure,
stuff.
I'll take it. Yeah, so I think there are a couple things, right? I think the main thing that most people think when they're getting into the music industry, because let's not talk about the old paradigm of it, uh, like the remnants of it are not mostly still here.
Right.
I think when people think about what can lead them to where they want to be uh, in their kind of burgeoning music career, they think I will stay myself, and if people like that, and if I can hone that and kind of polish that, and then do it consistently and post, and then also have my visual presence up on social media, then number go up, right? Number go up on streams, number go up on socials, right? And to an extent, I think the thing that's hard to quantify is that you can't really put a metric on luck, right? In the age of
I
virulence, you can't really say, even if you did everything, even if you've got a great hook to it, right? It's the catchiest thing anybody's ever heard. It's got a great beat, right? You've got a great performance on it. It's great. On paper, sure, it should do gangbusters, right? And then you post it and it doesn't. It doesn't do anything, right? And then you post another one and it's the exact same thing. The exact same thing. You followed the same formula, you did it, and this one does numbers. To an extent, there is a path that you can follow that makes your chances of number go up as positive as possible. But ultimately, there is no tried and true rubric that just says if you do 10 out of these 10 things, then I can guarantee you 50,000 followers.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't work that way.
No.
No. Not in any capacity does. I don't think anything in life works that way.
Right.
It says if you do X, Y, and Z, then here's the outcome that you're going to achieve by performing set task or set number of certain strategies. I don't think anything in life. Imagine if we had a roadmap to life,
Right.
and I knew exactly where to go and how to maneuver and what strategies to use. I'd be a millionaire.
That's why, I mean, I think that the healthiest way to look at it is, I'm a follow the Simon Sinek's.
Simon.
Start with why.
I love Simon.
I think that
I got that book.
Yeah.
Well, I got a couple of books of his, but
Right. I think the healthiest way for artists to really look at it is kind of like to follow that model and think about it from that perspective. Like if you are going into this like you said, with the what can this do for me? Like I want this to save me. I want this to pay me. I want, to make money with this. I want to have fame from this. If you're going into this with the what you want and what you expect to happen as the expectation, then I think that you're setting yourself up for disappointment. I think, if you're going into it more so from just the perspective of like why you're doing it, right? Like, oh, I want people to be able to feel a certain way through my music, or I want, to be able to have this sort of impact or that something to that effect, then I think that is something that creates a North Star for you, to the point where you're just going to get up every day and you're just going to chase that.
Right.
So whether or not you succeed in your wildest dreams almost becomes a little bit of a bonus. You know what I mean? Like if you're chasing your why and chasing your purpose through music every single day, and it's not like a self-serving, oh, I just want this material thing out of it, then I think that is probably the best way to be pleasantly surprised when something pops off.
Yeah, I like the reference to the Simon Sinek book. Right? Start with why. I mean, you got to ask yourself that question. Why am I really doing what I'm doing today? What is my intrinsic motivational factor that is driving me to achieve whatever this is? And it may be external, right? I mean, it may be an external motivational factor that's driving you to be in this music industry. It may be the fact that, I love music. I want to communicate, my vision to the world. I want to make money from it, right? I want to be able to make those connections. I don't think anything's wrong with that, but I think the issue comes into play when that's your only focus.
Right.
Like when you're getting into it, say, I'm going to make money from this. You're probably not.
Right.
Right? If I'm being honest, you're probably not going to make any money from it. Like that's
which is why the second that you're not, the second you're realizing that you're not
You're gonna be
making money
disappointed.
from it, you're gonna be disappointed.
You're going to be disappointed as soon as reality set in that the expectation that you have is not being met. You're going to go, whatever, I give up.
Or there's also the just scenario where, okay, you popped once and you made some money, and that's the thing. Your quote unquote pop could happen at a lot of different levels.
That's
it could be
true.
a local pop, and you could make your first, $5,000 for an appearance somewhere because maybe your city recognized you. You pop once, or it could be, a little bit more regional, and maybe it's more like a $100,000 check, and then nothing happens.
And you're like, yeah, wait,
where did all that money go? I thought I was on because I got that first, right? Like, because that's another scenario. Like, people think, okay, well, once it pops, it's just gonna keep popping, and it doesn't work that way either. Like, what goes up will eventually come down.
Yeah.
So
it's never just a straight shoot. When you think of like
not at infinitum, it's not.
Nah, even like aircrafts, right? When they fly, there are certain things they're doing in that air that we as the passengers don't even really realize. And I've flown, like, not actually a pilot myself, but I've been on a gazillion planes over the span of probably 15 years traveling and flying all across the country. Oh my gosh, I'm glad I don't travel no more. But there's certain things that they do, the way that they take off, the altitudes that they're at. Sometimes they're in the sky and they dip down low. Then you're like, oh, wait, you're not at the same altitude? No, we need to come down to avoid some of this crazy stuff, or we need to go higher above some of this crazy stuff. But they never keep the same, we need to steer course and go a different way. And things never truly work out 100% the way that we think they're going to work out based upon the expectations that we actually have or set or think that we may want to achieve, in this music industry. Right. I just thought it was I was listening to a couple of things talk about expectations in the industry and what people truly expect of themselves and of the music industry. Like, people sometimes really do expect the big three to come in on a white horse and to give them a oh, you an artist? Da, 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 da. Yeah, come with us. It don't work that way.
There are no real, there's a lot of people who don't have any real expectations. I think the plane analogy is the perfect analogy because a lot of people just want to fly, but they don't know where they're going.
Right.
They want to take off, have no idea where they're going to land. And that's part of the problem. Because truth be told, in some cases, depending on where your destination is, you can drive there.
it may take you longer.
It may take you longer.
But man, you can drive there. But that's the thing. So I think the overall crux of this whole thing is having realistic expectations as a music creative, producer, singer, songwriter, whatever it may be. When I got into doing music production, I didn't think that I just wanted to make music. Because I love making music, right? But I wasn't like, if I'm making music, then I need to be the hottest producer out here. Come check out my beats sucked in the beginning. Like, I had a friend of mine just laugh at my beats when he first heard them. He was like, yo, you made this?
That's so disrespectful.
I'm like, you made this? He was like, what in the world? But, but people do. People come in, my beats is the hottest beats. And it's like, well, they may actually be the hottest beats that you got. But just because you think you got the hottest beat doesn't automatically mean that the doors of success are going to open or the doors of opportunity are going to open up to you, which I think part of this whole thing is if you want to achieve success, you got to have, I think we talked about this last time, is making the right connections to the right people, right? And having platforms that are available to connect you to those people, which I'm gonna segue this into there, which is why I love what the two of you are doing with NCEG, right? And how you are building that platform to expose the students that you're working with from a collegiate level to talk about, hey, here's what you really need to plan, to organized, to structure,
Mm.
so that you could be effective
Mm.
in this space. Because there are too many people in this space that are in it, but they're not effective.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
That's the thing. They're here, but they're not effective. I don't, I'm just going to be here. I don't want to pay the consultant to help me organize my business. I don't
Mhm.
want to pay the performance coach to
Mhm.
talk to me about stage presence and how to be an artist and how to
Mhm.
perform, right? I don't
Yeah.
want to do that. I don't want to go to this person to develop myself, which is going to lead right into the next one, which is investing in your music career, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
How important is it for a music creative to invest? And when I don't mean just financially, right?
Right.
Like, how important is it for someone to invest in themselves so that they can be effective in this music space?
It's life or death, I think. In terms of your artistic career, if you do not make the necessary preparations before you jump off that cliff, you are going to hit the water. Right? There is no kind of softening that. And that is what I think I like so much about talking to all of the incoming freshman classes within SEG, because you get that shock every time, right? You're talking to 18-year-olds, 18, 19-year-olds, yeah? And you're essentially telling them, yeah, if you're not ready for this to be possibly the next decade of your life, then be a hobbyist and be proud of that. Like, have your hobby that you take pride in, but do not base your life on this. Because if you do this and you are in fact not prepared, or that maybe 2 years down the line you have obligations elsewhere that will pull your focus, that will pull your finances, that will kind of stop that consistent time or monetary investment, then the work that you've done will be moot. There is, like we were talking about a second ago, sustenance is not guaranteed. Just because you popped last summer, you can go back to being nobody the summer following.
Mm-hmm.
So it really is. If you're not prepared to go the distance, then don't start the race. Ultimately,
Yeah, I think one of the things that was really, really important to us with regards to even the context of explaining the need of investment, within the context of NSEG, was about just our ability to be able to tell the truth, right? Like, and so I'll tie in both of these things: expectation and then into the investment, right? Like, we understand that, yeah, in dealing with these 18, 19-year-olds, fresh out of their mama house, in many cases, they already have unrealistic expectations about life in general, let alone having dreams about going into the music industry. So then you start throwing on all of the demands of adulting, and then say, hey, make sure you save some extra time, energy, and money so that you can invest in your future. Yeah, like, it's a lot.
A
And
lot.
that's why the fairy tale of the big three coming to save you is so alluring, because as adults, as business people, we know and we understand the impression, the pressure of sustaining everyday life, let alone investing into a future, for ourselves and for our families. And oftentimes they just don't. But that investing it is important, and it is important that they also realize, especially with us dealing with predominantly kids of color. Investing is already a scary word to a lot of people anyway. Thank God that that's starting to change now. With the invention of these new podcasts and all this other stuff. But investing is a scary word. So helping them understand that you invest not just with money sometimes, but more times than not, the vast majority of us are investing with our time.
Right.
You know what I'm
for
saying? Like,
sure.
when they say time is money, we teach you need to take that literally, because when you don't have money, the one thing you do have is time, and you
Time.
shouldn't you shouldn't devalue how much your time is worth. And that's also the reason why we're not going to lie to you and tell you about all of these things and fill your head with all of these dreams about how you could be this and you, oh yeah, you're the best, so you're going to be on in a year. Like, none of that is real. And you're going to waste your time believing it, and you're going to waste our time as we're trying to teach you the things to make sure that you are squared away professionally and what's the word, responsibly, right? Like, just, you know, but understanding that, yes, it's not advisable that you invest. Like, it's not a suggestion, rather, that you invest. It is absolutely mandatory that you learn what it means to invest in yourself.
We need to have like a scared straight.
No, for real.
For real, like a scared straight, but for music creatives. Like, you want to get in this business?
That's kind of insane.
I've been in this business 20 years. I'm about to show you what it is. Come over here and get in here. I'm like, get in there. Like, I think they need to have like a oh, shoot, do I really want to do this? Get in here. You're going to sign this contract. This contract says you're going to give up everything, 360 deal. Oh, I got to take all your money, and give them like fake money.
Right.
And be like, oh, this is how much your advance is, but then you make this album, you got to recoup it all back, so you don't get nothing actually.
A scare straight for the music industry.
Like a scare straight.
That's absolutely brilliant.
That's
like
kinda,
for the music industry, right?
It's kind of accurate.
So that it wakes them up to go, oh shoot, do I really want to get into this?
Yeah.
Do I really, like, if you've never asked yourself that question, you starting off wrong. Like, put them through like a boot camp and say, we're going to create a mock scenarios of what a day in the life of a music creative is going to look like, from interacting with record labels, when you are looking at contracts, when you're looking at, advances, people paying you. Right? I mean, if you're an independent artist, you're not getting, who's giving you an advance? Right.
I mean, you got to advance yourself. That's why you got to have that job.
Right.
Because your job is advancing you, but then you got to know how to use that money wisely, right?
So, because you still got to eat.
Right, because you still got to eat, and you got to pay your bills. You still got to drive to the studio and pay the engineer in the studio place, and you're like, well, I don't have no money.
Yep.
Right. That's real stuff.
I mean, but in all seriousness, you are kind of describing insect. That's
they definitely. Oh yeah, I'm gonna have to come see one of these.
Oh yeah, we were
scared straight.
Jesus Christ, especially in the early days before.
Yeah, we had some alumni that can tell you some stories.
Oh yeah,
we were terrorists for a little while, man, and it wasn't
like boot camp.
Oh, totally. Yeah,
oh, yeah.
It was necessary, but again, the adage has always been, do I want to get into this? Whereas historically, you go through it in the dark and you come out of the other side and you say, should I have done this? So it's always, I think, in better taste to shock you first so that you can make a fair decision if you want to give this a shot,
right,
on a knowledgeable basis, rather than, we got your money, we got 20 years of your life, and now you don't have a means of supporting yourself. I'd rather 100 times over scaring you out of
scare you out of that.
Without a doubt. That will save you so much more. And it will come out of the music business. When you think about the industry itself, we can finally start to dispel some of that, I think, negativity that has kind of latched onto it throughout the years, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because I mean, for all intents and purposes, you also got to realize that, like, you know, as we kind of mentioned before, you know, and I don't like to trash, you know, major labels, because at the end of the day, they're just businesses. They're just businesses doing what's in the best interest of their business. But we need to make it clear that the best interest of their business is not you understanding how the industry works.
Exactly.
So there was never any real incentive for them or anyone else that was operating at a high level in this industry to hold your hand and take care of you. Like, that's just not a thing, right? So one of the reasons for why we kind of approach teaching in the way that we do with regards to the context of INSEG is that, like, we essentially invented the only mechanism that I know of that is better with everyone knowing exactly what's at stake at all times. It's the only scenario where everyone around us being 100% educated about what happens and what it's going to take to get from point A to point B is actually in all of our mutual best interest.
Right.
So you end up with a very, very clear A or B choice at the end of the day. It's like either A, I am going to like fully commit to doing this and know exactly what that means. I am going to work. I am going to stress out. I am going to, spend long nights, early mornings. Like I am going to do that because I am that dedicated and passionate about this. Or B, you are going to quickly realize, there's some people who are built for this, and I am not one of them.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like in our capacity, we need you to make that choice as quickly and definitively as possible.
Right. Were you telling me the story about the lady who was essentially she got robbed in the music? Maybe it wasn't you then, but maybe. But I heard this story. Maybe I don't know who told me, but it was something about she and somebody else. I think the other person was her manager or producer. It was something. But long story short, she was an artist, and then something happened, and she was kind of taken advantage of or robbed out of a situation. And based upon that situation, she quit 100% and was like, I no longer want to be in this industry if this is how the industry works.
Right.
And most people don't get that realization until they're put into those situations.
Right.
And I think having like that scared straight type of approach it gives them that in the very beginning. It says, do you truly want to be in an industry that operates like this? I heard Issa Rae, right? 'Cause she started her own label.
Yep.
Right. She was like, I've never seen so many snakes in my life.
Yeah. And I'm very, very happy, let's be clear. For the mission that we're on, we're very, very, even after 10 years of being on this mission and doing this work, we're still very, very early in the early phases of what our plans include. And if we're being honest, that's kind of like our story. Our whole story was that, I don't want to be around these snakes either.
Right.
Like I don't believe that it is a necessary component of the industry that you have to deal with snakes in order to get where you want to go. I have chosen to believe that we can make a better way. And let's be clear. I'm choosing to believe that because I 100% believe that the technology exists today.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That makes that possible didn't exist before. Before, you just had to lay down with snakes because there was no other way. We created NSEG and the foundation that we created because we believe that, if we're really looking everything with clearer eyes, I think we actually can form a new industry that works in a more holistic way that doesn't involve all of the
treachery
and nefarious activities.
I think it's possible. I think it's man, ain't nobody saying it's gonna be easy.
You got to remove all those maybe from an independent perspective.
Correct. That's the only way.
Right. That's the only way.
That's the only way. But that is why NSEG functions the way it functions, is because when you say, all right, you're in the role of A&R, you're in the role of, producer, engineer, artist, all of these different people. Like at the end of the day, our program functions because we are also utilizing the same methodology that everybody is telling all of these like indie artists now. Like, bro, stop asking for handouts from people who are like 10 years and 20 years your senior in this game. Like first off, they can't help you. And even if they could, you don't have the credibility to warrant them wanting to help you.
Mhm.
Like, why would I step out on a limb for you
Mhm.
and jeopardize my career when, like we just established, any of us could lose every single thing we have with one bad move.
Right.
So fundamentally in our organization, the whole thing is that these students are working together in order to build their own platforms and bring themselves up.
Mhm.
So now there's no need or real reason or real benefit from nobody snaking each other
Right.
because
We're all coming up together.
we're
I mean, you're creating infiltrators,
correct.
right?
100%. And I'm
Yeah.
very, very proud to say that many of them have already infiltrated.
Exactly. You're creating infiltrators so that those infiltrators, you seen the movie Salt with
With Angelina Jolie.
Angelina Jolie,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Remember they back in Russia, they had all the kids,
Yeah.
and then they groomed all those kids, and then they sent out the kids
Man,
into
that
the
makes
world.
it sound so evil.
I know, right?
I mean,
I'm using the analogy, hopefully in a good way. And then they sent all the kids out into the world, and then all those kids grew up and infiltrated
Yeah.
certain types of things. Like the president's right-hand man was like one of their guys, right?
Yeah.
Um,
That's pretty accurate, actually.
but in this capacity, it's being done from a better perspective, right? Where they can go in and initiate change into those organizations that they're part of. So if you have a group of students who are understanding the business and they're understanding how to do business the right way, when they go into these organizations, they can create that type of culture.
Yeah.
Because they've learned the basic principles and things like that, so that when they get into those higher level positions, they can then exude those, that culture, those morals and things like that.
Exactly. And that's what's
From a good perspective.
and that's exactly what's important. It is the culture part of it is what's important. It's one thing when you're learning about the industry from inside, these organizations
Mhm.
and through like internships and things like that, where ultimately you're playing by their rules,
Right.
which means that you're learning the culture of what they are
Sure.
doing, which no shade, but means that you could inherently pick up some
You're
bad
gonna pick
habits.
up some bad stuff.
You can pick up
For
some
sure.
bad habits. It doesn't necessarily means you're gonna be a bad person, but it means that you are more inclined to believe, this is the way the industry works, so this is what I gotta do, so this is who I gotta be, and that is what you're just perpetuating the same things that have caused so many people so much heartache in this industry already, versus we bringing in fresh blood
Mhm.
who know how to operate from the indie perspective, because the market share of independence is growing anyway.
Yep.
And they know how to do so in the process of facilitating a culture that isn't about that. Right? Like they're facilitating a culture of philanthropy, of mentorship, of opening doors for other people and realizing the importance of giving back. Why? Because all of the mentors that are a part of NSEG go out of their way every single day to give back to them.
Mm-hmm.
So how dare they become the next generation who refuses to give back to the new generation of NSEG members?
That's coming, yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And that's ultimately that vision.
I teach, when I do leadership training, I teach leaders, I said, and staff, I said, you pick up the behaviors of the people that you're hanging around with.
Yes. 100%.
And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, you do. Think about it. If you have a leader that talks down to staff, that is aggressive with staff, that's self-centered, takes control, I could almost guarantee you're going to start to exhibit those same type of behaviors. So if you're learning these behaviors within inside the culture of the big three, big four, however many big ones there are or will come, right? If you're learning those business skills, quote unquote business skills from them, those tactics, you're going to eventually do those to the same people. Right? I had a conversation with a record label executive out in Houston, and we were kind of talking about this same thing, and he was giving me the background about record executives, and if we put certain people in positions who are looking out for the community, like KRS One and Rakim and all these, and they would give back to the community. They would tell artists the real deal. And I used the exact. This was an example that stuck out to me so profoundly. was in the New Edition story, right? If you've ever seen the New Edition story, there's the one scene where Michael Bivins bursts into the room. He was like, boom, how dare y'all robbing us? You gonna tell me who we really signed to? Where the money at, right? And Tank, who was playing the president of RCA, I think it was RCA, he was like, look, you coming in here. He's like, everybody get out. Like, y'all get out. I'm gonna handle this dude real quick. And he was like, look, who we really signed to? Are we signed to you, RCA? Or are we signed to Gary, our manager? And Tank, who was playing the president, was a black guy. Michael Bivins, black guy. And he was saying, look, let me tell you the real deal. He's like, you're not signed to us. You signed to your manager. Your manager has a record company, and that's who you signed to. Everything we pay him, he pays you. And that stuck with me to go, even if there are people in those positions, and he made the point, he said, but who did he learn that from?
Right.
He learned it from the people in the organization that were doing those same practices. So not the fact that he was black and Michael Bivins is black and he's like, I'm looking out for you. It's like, no, we're still doing those same practices because we learned them in this culture.
Right.
And I think that's once again creating infiltrators.
Yeah. That
can change the culture as they are I'm gonna use the word infecting, positively infecting the culture, the way that it really should be. I'm gonna go back when I think of investing. Of course, investing financially. Right. This is probably one of the only industries that you got to besides video and film.
Yeah.
All right, I gotta buy all types of crazy crap, but you got to pay in order to be in this thing.
Yeah.
Right. And you paying a lot of money to be in this world. So there's a monetary side, financial piece that you got to pay. But there's also a skill set that you have to develop, right? You talked about, Xavier, wearing, do I wear 60 hats a day? Do I wear 70 hats a day? Well, how do you know? How do you know what hat you need to put on? And I always teach people about developing the skill sets that are necessary in order for you to be effective, right?
Sure.
So one of the things that I teach people to do, whether it's inside organizations or talking to an artist, like when I used to manage artists, I had every artist do this. I was like, you know what a SWOT analysis is?
Yes, sir.
They're like, what's that? I'm like, I'm about to teach you what a SWOT analysis is.
Strengths, weaknesses,
opportunities and threats. That's right. I said, I want you to sit down. I did a whole video on this. It's going to be over here somewhere, right? But I did a whole video talking about SWOT analysis and how you act. I had to do one for myself. When I got into being a producer, I was like, halfway in there. Which is why we ended up moving to Atlanta. Because it was a weakness and an opportunity, right? And so when you do a SWOT, so for those of you who don't know what a SWOT analysis is, it stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The S and W are internal, right? They are internal strengths, internal weaknesses, and then it's external opportunities, external threats, right? But after that, you do what's known as a TOES analysis, which is, how do I take advantage of my opportunities? How do I minimize my weaknesses, right? And so you do this thing called a TOES. It's SWOT backwards, right? But you're doing a different analysis. That is so eye-opening. Like I had to do one of myself, and that identified some things. And I was like, oh,
right,
I'm not in the right city for this. That's one. I need to move because there ain't no opportunities in this city. There's opportunities in Atlanta. So I eventually, of course, we're here now. But I teach people to do that, a SWOT analysis, and go through that process to identify. And if you don't have the skills, at least you now see that you don't.
Right.
And now you can start to put plans in place to say, okay, one of my biggest weaknesses is I don't know anything about the music industry. Oh, well, guess what? Time to go learn.
Educate yourself.
Right. I was interviewing a music supervisor, and she was stating that she wanted to get into, just before she was a music supervisor.
Celeste?
Celeste. Yeah, Celeste. She was like, before I got into music supervision, I didn't really know what it was. So guess what I did? I went to school for music supervision.
Sure.
Now I know what it is. I know it's different than what other people say.
Right.
And it's like, if you want to build the skill, you have to at least go. And you mentioned, Prez, that there's technology today has given you access to so much resources that you can't say that you don't know. If you don't know, it means you probably
Haven't looked.
Or you just want to be I just want to be the artist.
Right.
Right? I just want to be the artist, want to be the producer. But you got to go look. I mean, YouTube is there, right? We give the Indie Unplugged gives it to you, right?
Right.
We got all types of stuff. And there's other people out there that do. INSEG does the same, right? You providing opportunities and information and resources and tools. You got to take advantage of it. Like, I think that's the big piece. Skill development.
Yeah. Yeah, but as we talked about before, ignorance is not
Mhm.
bliss, fun.
Comforting.
That's yes.
Ooh, ignorance is comforting because I don't have to step outside of what's comfortable for me.
Yeah. And that's just the reality of it. So whenever we hear an artist say, I don't think I need to do that. I don't think, what I'm saying, I can do it this way because I seen
Blah blah.
I've
seen
seen
blah,
blah
blah
blah do it.
Okay.
And so I don't need to do it because they didn't need to do it. And we don't argue with those people. We just okay. Goodbye.
Right. If you want to pay the tax.
Pay the tax.
Want to pay the tax. That's right. I think one of the other things we move on to the next segment is I think this is something that people don't do often enough, which is learning how to set boundaries in order to have a sustainable career. I remember having a conversation with an engineer and producer, and this guy you wouldn't know him if you saw him walking down the street. But if you looked at his discography, you'd be like, oh man, what in the world? You work with Michael Jackson, NSYNC, Justin Timberlake, Teddy Riley, right? Bob Marley, Ziggy Marley. Like, you work with
everybody.
I mean, I'm literally oh my gosh, this discography is crazy. And this is I learned engineering from him. I'm not an engineer. I just wanted to know, once again, this is the skill, right?
Sure.
I was like, I want to know what engineering is and how you actually mix music. And I'm never going to do that, but I at least want to know what that involves. How it works, right? So remembering the situation and they telling me some stuff. I'm like, nah, that ain't right, bro. That ain't right. You need to bring that down -2 dB. They're like, dB, you know what? I do.
Right.
Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna tell you. And so he told me this situation where he was on vacation with his wife, got a call to come to the studio to work on an album for XYZ person, right? I don't remember who the person was. All right, I'll be there. You can do what? Now, granted,
it had to be
granted,
somebody.
It had to be one. It had to be somebody. Two, for you to call me while I'm on vacation with my wife to ask me to come to this thing.
Wow.
But what's really surprised me is the fact that he did. And he ended the vacation and they flew back and he went to this engineering session and did whatever project was. Sorry, I got to put it out. But I'm not dropping no names.
You wouldn't do that.
No.
You wouldn't do that.
No, sir. Right. But the reason why I wouldn't do it because it's part of my boundaries that I've set for myself. Right. I may get that call and I may say, okay, let's talk through this opportunity.
Yeah.
And then I would go to my wife and say, hey, look, here's the deal. What say us?
Us.
What say us?
Yes.
And then if she's really adamant about like, nah, we're not doing this. We on vacation. We don't really get no time together. I'm going to say, no, I'm sorry. I'm going to pass that up.
Yeah. So I understand multiple sides of this. So for one, I'm a married man with kids. Okay.
And married, me too.
So, and I think that I see both sides of it, right? Like I understand why he took that call. I understand why he went, especially depending on what the opportunity is. It's like you get that. And I think so often, I mean, we can talk all day about just the deficit in having really real candid conversations about the type of preparation that you should do when getting into a relationship in the first place. Like, because that's a whole nother thing.
different
And
thing.
being in a serious relationship in this industry, and even without this industry, is already hard enough. But
Right.
especially in this industry, it gets incredibly difficult because of because there are no hours of operation
Right.
for any entertainment industry,
right.
let alone the music industry. There are no hours of operation, right? So I get that, and I can say that there have been times where, I've gotten calls like that where it's like, all right, I gotta go. Never. I've been on vacation. I'm about to catch a flight back.
Right.
I've never been in that situation, but that's just because I ain't never got a call like that before. From someone who could even warrant.
It was
It had to have been, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
But when you're dealing with someone with that type of pedigree, you expect that, right? And I think that's the real big thing. It's like, understand where you are in your position, and also understand it, kind of like how we talked about it before. This industry is sales and service, right? It
Yep.
is a service based industry largely, meaning that, you know what I'm saying, you serve your clientele. I'm sure there are doctors who receive medical emergencies from a client of theirs, and they gotta go.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They pack it up and go, depending on the level of
Severity for that.
severity that they are at. But I also think that, it's not like he
Well, that's life
wasn't
and death.
aware that he was
Right.
in that position. Like, he knew who he was when he signed up to even be on call with these people in the first place, right?
Sure.
You know what I mean? And so I think it's just that. I think it depends on what your clientele is. But I do think it's worth having the conversation, and you realizing, all right, there's certain things that I want to be. Like, I know I can speak for myself. I discovered very early on, for a number of different reasons, that I wanted to be on the more like business development, educational side of the industry. Because though I had the interest and the passion for like performance and DJing and engineering, like, especially like for like concerts and things like that. Oh, I love it. Like, I'm a nerd. If I go to any concert, I'm looking at all the lights. I'm
the same way when it comes to
you know what I mean? But
camera crap.
But I also realize that, but I don't want the lifestyle associated with that. I don't
Exactly.
want to
No,
be on
sir.
the road. That's not what I want to do. So yeah, if it's in Atlanta, you gonna call me to be your front of house guy? Cool. I can do that. But don't ask me to go on tour with you, because I'm not doing it.
But see, that's you setting those boundaries for yourself.
Exactly.
Right? That's setting those boundaries. That's saying, how am I going to maximize my time effectively with what I got? And time is limited, right? I mean, yes, granted, we all have the same amount of time. Well, when it comes to like 24 hours and 7 days a week, how we use and maximize that time. That's how we set boundaries. We say, I'm going to use my time to do this or to do this. Yeah, granted, I get it. We're gonna get those calls that say, hey, or we may hopefully get those calls that say, hey, I need you to come do this, right? And it's like, okay, great. Then I'm gonna go do that. I'm gonna have to because I'm married.
Right.
let me make sure I stress that. Because I'm married, I'm gonna have that conversation with my wife and say, look, here's the deal. And she's gonna go, okay, cool. We can do it, or I don't know about that.
Javi, you not married?
Yeah, on behalf of the non-married, non-children owning community, I think what is very interesting, and why I was so quiet and kind of taking that in, is understanding the difference in the kind of problems that people face. So myself personally, kind of to contrast Prez, perhaps, I have always been heavily, comparably at least, on the artistic side. The business side of it has always bored me to death. But the artistic stuff is the stuff where it's not an outside force that's pushing you to do something. For example, I have never considered picking up that call. Even if I was on vacation, it doesn't matter who it was. They could be like, hey, yo, Michael Jackson just like rose from the dead, and he said, "Hey, yo,
He's like, hey,
that last picture you just dropped was crazy, right? We need you to get up to wherever he lives and hook it up." I'd be like, "Right, goodbye, right, fair enough." But for the people living a selfish lifestyle, let's just call it what it is. I have no people to call me and essentially pull me back to get something done immediately.
Mm-hmm.
It is just my biggest thing has been, for example, getting my computer out of my bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
That was always a very, very tough decision for me. Getting the thing that I used to create my art when I was in music, getting the thing that I used to do my mixes, and now that I'm in photography, getting the computer that I do my edits on.
Oh yeah. Hey, we're gonna talk about that live. Yes, sir. Editing.
That's been tough.
Right. It's been tough.
Super tough. In a way that, I never had to have a conversation with my wife that doesn't exist, but I definitely have had to have that conversation with my sleep schedule.
Right. Exactly.
Certainly.
Exactly. We got to talk about photography though, because videography is my thing.
Gotcha.
We'll talk about that. But it makes it's still about setting the boundaries, though, right?
Absolutely.
Even if you are on the creative side,
Sure.
even if you're on the business, because that's my side right there, right? Mm-hmm. I was really good at making beats, and I quickly realized that ain't what I really want to do. I don't really want to make beats. Mm-hmm. I'm a hobbyist when it comes to that. Mm-hmm. I will buy the equipment. Now, so as a hobbyist, I will purchase the equipment, pay them whatever money I need, and play around with it and never put out a song.
That's hey. That brings you joy, and that's fine.
It brings me joy. And that's what my son says. I'm like, yeah, I make beats. He's like, do you? I'm like, I really don't, because I don't really put it out. I did in the beginning when I thought I was going to be a producer, but then I quickly realized that I have skills, a certain set of skills on the other side.
Of course.
And I was like, I'm gonna take all of the stuff that I know from being an organizational development, leadership consultant, and figure out how to do it in the music business, right? But even in doing that, there's boundaries. Always. There's you can't call me after a certain time, right? I can't do that.
Right.
On Thursdays, every other Thursday is date night. I can't come to the studio. I can't go to a show. I can't come to nope, because that's date night, right? I got that's me using time management practices to say, here's how I allocate my time, and here's how I use that time. Sure. And these dates, these are these times non-negotiable.
Absolutely. And I think that if we're gonna take that back to the advice to the independents, really the lesson in that is, bruh, think about it. Because real talk, most of these independents, most of these young people, they haven't even thought about that scenario. They haven't thought about the actual lives that they want to have and want to live to that level and extent. And that's kind of part of the problem. It's like because once you start looking at that, you really start to realize where your niche is, right? Like you start to realize how there really is money out here for everybody, because some people, they might have the exact same skill set, but the hours I'm willing to work are much different than the hours that you willing to work. And it's not that you're gonna do more hours than me or less hours than me. They're literally just a different part of the day. I'm not I was literally at an event last night, and I was talking to a guy, and he was like, yo, no, I'm up. He says I do 5 p.m. to I think he said 6 a.m., 9 a.m. And I was crazy. I was like, what? He was like, yeah, we're doing this event tonight. You should come out. It's it's a 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. party. And I was like, bruh,
I'm asleep. Bro, I'm in the bed.
That's almost an insult.
I said tonight, bro. That's tomorrow morning. What are you talking about? He was like, nah, man, that's tonight. I was like, nah,
that's tomorrow, bro.
Nah,
but see, those are the things that even for myself, I still have to wrestle with those. because we are in a space that operates at night,
Mm-hmm.
right? Holds events at night, studio sessions they can be in the daytime, but most of them happen at night,
Well, I don't have it.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Concerts, events, all
Yep.
happen at night.
Yep.
Mhm.
I work a day job,
Yeah.
right? I'm at work. I get off. I still do all of this and edit and do a whole bunch of stuff. Then I still got to go to an event that's at 10. It starts at 10.
Yeah.
Tough.
Yes, it's tough. And
I'm like, oh man.
And because that's what it was for me. It was realizing that is 100% the case, and that is true. But it's not exclusively true that all events only happen at night. It's just that the
Right,
vast
right.
majority of them do, right? As a matter of fact, the most well-paying ones, especially if you're talking about events, happen during the day.
Mm-hmm.
Weddings, corporate events, birthday party. Well, birthday parties are going more a lot of times happen at night. But you get what I'm saying? Like a lot of those like high-end corporate or like real big important family function type of events, those are oftentimes happen during the day. Right. So, and so it's like, so from the perspective of a DJ, like that guy last night, okay, I'm the DJ that's gonna get called to be at every club event that gonna start at midnight and do a midnight until. He's that guy.
Yeah.
He's sleeping at 10 a.m. So he's not showing up on the broad side of a lake at 9 a.m. to shoot wedding photos or to DJ a wedding gig. He's not that guy, right?
He understands that. He understands, and if he was that guy, he would have to then
plan
accordingly to say,
plan accordingly.
hey, if I want to do this because this wedding is paying me $5-6 grand, or this organization is paying me 20-30 grand to come in to shoot, take pictures, headshots of all their leaders, or to do video introductions of all their
right. So that's really what it is. It's like the boundaries that you are setting, they are important because they ultimately define your business model. Setting those boundaries is what helps you define what it is that you are going to specialize in and the specific type of clientele that you are best off serving.
What about moral boundaries?
Okay, well, same, right? I consider that the exact same thing. For all intents and purpose, there's a lot of people who don't have them, and there's work for them.
Right. That's right.
That sounds so evil.
It's true. There's a lot of people who don't have those moral boundaries,
Yeah.
and there's tons of work out there for them.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who have a ton of them, and there's work for them too.
Right.
But identifying that stuff is how you.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are tons of DJs. They don't do nothing but church gigs. I'm sure it exists.
Sure.
I'm sure it exists.
Of course.
It exists.
It exists.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think the through line there is that understanding your boundaries gives you focus.
Right.
Right. It gives you focus and it gives you purpose, and it lets you kind of dodge the annoyances that end up wasting a lot of your time. When you know where you want to be, then you don't end up essentially having to go back to the drawing board every month or two, because you realize that this new thing that you just started is something else that you don't really want to do, that you don't like a part of, right? The thing that got me out of mixing was that I'd be getting off of work, and that's like, because I like to do essentially start to finish on my mixes in one session. And if I've got a vocalist and they've got an ungodly amount of stacks, yeah, that's 6 to 8 hours gone.
Yes, sir.
Right? So there you go. If I'm getting off at 5 p.m., my day now cannot end before midnight.
Yep.
Whether I wanted it to or not, whether I've got work in the morning or not. So I realized after doing it for way too long, mind you, that I hate how tired I am every day. And even though I loved doing it, it just the things that went into doing it professionally just started to clash to the point that I had to realize that, okay, I love it, but we got to do something else, essentially, at least until you get done with the day job.
Yeah, I think that's wow.
Totally.
Yeah.
you,
Oh,
just,
trust me.
you just took him back.
Trust me. That's why I went
Oh,
to learn.
yeah.
That's why I go learn types of stuff, right? And like,
Mhm.
let me go see what the day in the life of a mix engineer really is. Let me see what you do.
Mhm.
Man, it's the most boringest job I've ever seen.
It's
It's-
droll.
I had to be sitting in the studio just like,
Yeah.
especially if I'm watching. And that kind of was when I went to, so I ended up going to EI by Nelly, right? When I was back in St. Louis. I was one of their first students. Me and another homie of mine, we were the very first students at this school. We both got a scholarship. Well, I got a scholarship. I think he had to pay though. But I got a scholarship to go to the mixing. I could choose any class I wanted to. And I chose mixing, right? And I was like, okay, cool. Because I want to know about this mixing thing. Most boringest class. No offense. Carl, no offense, bro, but that class was boring. But it wasn't boring because of him as a facilitator or what we were doing. It was the amount of hours that
Yep.
were put into that thing. We
Yep.
would sit there from 5, 11, 12 at night. I'm like, Chinky came in one time. He was like, what's up? He was just like, y'all still in? I'm like, yeah, we still in. Oh my gosh, bro. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
Mhm.
And I know people who mix, and they love it, but they love it because they're very introverted, introspective people. But they don't, and they do it all the time.
Indeed.
I'm like, I can't do that. I can't.
And that's when you realize.
I can't.
So there's something to be said about realizing that, you know, if you're someone who, like, especially if you're new in the industry and you're still trying to figure out what you do and don't want to do, that's part of the reason why, yeah, you should probably just try a little bit of everything so that you can really, especially if it's something that you think you might want to like make
Sure.
a living doing.
Sure.
You definitely need to actually like try it out in like an intense format to see if you really can handle the level of workload associated with that particular skill set.
Mhm.
Because yeah, like until you do that, you can't set boundaries,
Yes.
and then you can't build out your business models so that you can start taking clients and doing work.
Exactly.
Agreed. Yeah.
Exactly.
You won't have that perspective.
Mm-mm.
Also, for all aspiring things, I just want to be fair to people. Having been both a mixing engineer and now a photographer that edits his own work, there will always be something you're going to lose. For example, when I was an engineer, and I was an engineer professionally for about 9 years, right? I have lost, from what the doctor says, about 20% of my hearing, right? Just
Me
off
too.
of that, right?
Well, I lost mine at a concert, but anyway.
There you go, right? And now as a photographer, double the fun. Now I am losing my vision because I'm staring
At a
like
screen.
6 inches from a 4K screen that's blasting light into me. Yeah, there are consequences to what you want to do. It's
Yep.
more than just you looked at something and you say, oh, well, I really thought I did want to do that, but you know, whatever, let's just pivot and do something else. There is something both obviously to gain and to lose with everything that you try, if you try it
Right.
legitimately.
Right. You know what? I'm sitting here as you're saying that.
I think that's a perfect pivot
When you're
into this
saying
next piece too.
that, I like actually editing videos and coloring videos.
Sure.
It's like mixing though.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
It's just visual mixing.
It's visual mixing. And
Same thing.
I will sit there for like 4 hours, 5
Without a
hours,
doubt.
color and edit the whole thing. I'm good.
Yeah.
But but in the beginning mixing, I was like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
But I think that comes, I think when I did it in the beginning, it's because I love doing music. Don't get me wrong, I love music today. I love what I'm doing today on this side of music. But I love what I do with video and editing and coloring. Like I love the coloring aspect. Oh my gosh.
Really?
Right. Oh my gosh. It's like, oh my God. I love it. But it's just like mixing. You gotta love what it is that you're doing. And I think there was somewhere along the line I fell out of love with doing that.
Right.
And I then fell in love with doing this.
Mhm.
And so now that took over. But it's the same thing.
It's
It's
the
visual
Scratching the
mixing.
same itch.
Because
yes.
I would sit there from 5, 6 to 12
Yep.
and do the same exact thing.
Yep.
But which kind of segues into what this next part is how is AI transforming right? Because we're using tools,
Right.
right? And in these tools, there's AI built into a lot of these tools.
Right.
Like in DaVinci, I use DaVinci to color and edit.
Sure.
There's AI tools in there.
Of course.
There's AI tools everywhere. There's AI tools in your DAWs. There's
All
AI
over the place.
tools everywhere. So how is artificial intelligence? Well, let me go back. Generative AI, right? Because it ain't AI. This ain't AI to me until it's Terminator.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Until it's RoboCop. That's what I'm talking about. That type of AI.
Right. So I want to, because of where we just came from and talking about like the consequences of putting in all of these endless hours on stuff and everything that you lose in that, I do want to go ahead and, again, we talked about technology, making things possible now that were never possible before.
Mhm.
And yes, there's pros and cons to that as well. But one thing that we can definitely imagine, we don't really have to imagine, is so how much more are we able to keep our hearing for longer by having AI tools help us mix?
Mhm.
How much are we able to preserve our health and our eyesight by having AI tools help us with editing of photos and videos, right? Like, how much are we able to reduce some of the risks and inherent harms that technology has really placed upon us that all of us have gotten used to
Right.
by now using this next evolution of that technology to speed these processes up.
Mhm.
There is something to be said about the potential there that should not be ignored, regardless of how scared of AI we inevitably probably should
I'm only
be.
scared of the Terminator.
Right.
Right. If it's that AI, that's the AI I'm scared. I'm running from a T-1000.
100%. I mean, as you should, as we all should,
Right.
as we should probably be prepared to drop whatever nuke on whatever city is the first to develop it. I'm guessing it's going to be California, but that's just me.
Man.
Like, but I generative AI though, it is. I was because in the world of academia, especially, we there's something that's very whispered about,
Mm.
and it is about how academia is struggling to keep up to the actual demands of what any of these industries are really calling for. That was happening
Mhm.
already without, AI.
Right.
And now these things are speeding up so fast. I was literally just talking with some students, and of course, we're exploring, sync placements, and this is stuff that we're doing, we do every single year. Like we're talking about production, we're talking about
Right.
putting songs out, we're talking about film and television and sync placements. And then I don't know what I was doing. I was doing some research, and I was forced to actually land on, I think it's Soma or Sona. You know what I'm talking about? I think it's Sona.
I think it's Sona.
What does it do?
It is generative AI where literally you just put in a prompt and it'll spit out whatever song.
Oh no, yeah. Look. I got Udio, right? So
What-
Udio is like
it's like that too.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh,
Yeah.
So I got.
It'll spit out whatever
never heard-
song
Xavier,
in
you heard of
whatever
this?
style.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Whatever song in whatever style, talking about whatever it is that you want it to be talking about.
It'll do it.
And I mean, like, these things have hundreds of thousands of plays already.
Of course.
Like, it's like there is a community of people who is listening to this stuff like a real streaming platform, even, let alone making it and using it for
Right.
stuff. But I mean, when you really think about the evolution of that, I'm okay. Think about like all of these songs like in the sync space. where it's like, all right, I need the perfect song for this perfect scenario.
Just put
It's
a
talking
prompt
about
in.
this girl walking
Right.
down the street in
Bruh.
this red dress, and her love interest is whatever, and you can literally write the prompt to write that song.
You can snipe it.
You can snipe
You
that
can-
exact
It is so
circumstance.
crazy. Look, it is so crazy. I'm trying to find look, okay, so when I found out about UDO, my wife was in here. I was like, babe, come here. Come here. Come here. Come look at this. She's like, what? Come sit here in this chair and I want you to listen to this song. And I played her this song. She was like, oh, that was pretty cool. I was like,
I didn't make that.
no, I didn't make that.
Nobody
Nobody
made
made that. Right? And so I put in the prompt. I put in this prompt. I'm going to play this thing. I put in this prompt. And she was sitting in this chair right here. And I said, make a song about a woman sitting in the chair, being elegant, whatever the prompt was I put in there, right? It spit out this. Let me see if I can play this thing.
She sits back there, sleek pose with a queenly flair. In her throne, she reigns so tight. Whisper softly, come on, it's alright. Yeah, just feel the vibe, live it up under the lights.
That's a computer, bro.
That's a computer, man. That's a Terminator sitting behind a computer making a sense. Bruh.
Like, cause this is your first time hearing this stuff.
So no. I
Oh,
did
that-
it
oh,
and
that
then I
fu-
purged it from my memory.
I injected it back in.
Yeah,
Right.
so Derek knows from when I was still doing mixing, right? Even
Mhm.
before it got to this like disrespectful, like really intelligent,
Disrespectful.
efficient, yeah,
Right.
like degree. Derek bought, didn't tell me first because he knew
I did not. Oh yeah, I remember that. I remember that.
because he knew how I'd react, right? Quick backstory. I love the kind of meticulous nature of mixing and
Mhm.
editing and all of the stuff. Like that is what does it for me, right? So he comes into the mixing studio that we had at the time, and he brought isotope products, right? And if you don't know, there is Nectar, there is
Yup.
Neutron, and there is what's the big one, the mastering one, whatever it is.
Ozone.
Ozone.
yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, ozone.
Yeah, and
I know.
they had this mixing assistant and this vocal assistant and this mastering assistant, and literally, we dropped a stinker of a song into all three of those. Ran the vocals through Nectar, ran the instrumentals through Neutron, mixed the whole thing down in another instance of Neutron, and then mastered it with Isotope. 0 effort, right?
Yeah.
4 minutes. And that was on a crappy Mac. So we could have tuned that down to 1.5 minutes, right?
Right.
And it sounded good, right? And I looked at D and I told him to leave because it
Like,
showed
get
me.
out.
Yeah, it's so right. That is to say, I think there are two stances that you have when it comes to AI.
Mhm.
You have it either as that of a usurper. It's going to take something
them
that
away.
I held dear,
Yeah.
right? Which was absolutely, admittedly, how I felt about it at the time. It's taking from me something that I took pride in, taking a lot of time and taking my hearing. It was a point of pride for me. And now I see it as a tool because I was looking at it purely as an artist and frankly as a hobbyist. I was looking at it from the perspective of something that is taking this meticulous thing from me that I was placing value in the meticulousness. But when I put it on someone else's song that I didn't want to mix, no disrespect, saying no names, but when I did it on a track that, I had been procrastinating even opening up the project file because I knew, even if I mix this perfectly, it's still a 6 out of 10, right? So being able to throw that on there, I'm sorry for the rudeness, but
No, that's-
being able to throw those plugins on there and it's saving
Yup.
me that time. Now I see it as the other perspective, as a tool,
It's a tool.
right? I think even with UDO
Mhm.
and the others that are more sophisticated now, if we use it or think about it even in terms of inspiration, they're a great tool, right?
Right.
They can help pull you out of an artistic rut when you
Mhm.
cannot write to save your life. You cannot compose to save your life. It can do that first step for you. that would then open you up to be able to essentially add your own uniqueness and your personal flair to it from
Right,
there, which
right.
still has that value. But I think as long as people are kind of looking at it in terms of black and white and are fearing it as this thing that will take something from you, that will take something that you hold personally dear, I don't think it will. I think as it becomes more and more sophisticated, people are going to see it more and more negatively
Mm-hmm.
when it can do more of those things that people take this individual point of pride in.
Yeah,
I 100% forgot about that isotope story.
That is
that
hilarious.
100% true. I did do that.
That's hilarious.
I did do that.
I didn't talk to you for a long time.
I saw it. I found out about it. It blew my mind immediately. Shout out to Isotope. And yeah, nah, I dropped that bread
That
immediately
It's funny.
and just delivered it to my best friend. I sure did.
That is,
I
bro,
sure
that is
did.
hilarious.
I sure did. And yeah, like it's weird realizing, yo, that was years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And just
like,
think about how better it got.
yeah,
So fast. Yeah.
So fast.
because that was when it first came out.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're on Ozone 10.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the things you can do in Ozone 10.
Put 9 to shame. It's wild.
Wow.
Yeah. The iterations are crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so I see it the same way. I see, and I guess for me, the overall message is learning how to embrace this generative AI in the most effective way, right? I'm all about, if you can tell, I'm all about doing things effectively, right?
Mhm.
So I like I use ChatGPT all day, all the time,
Mhm.
right? Hey, write this bio. Hey, come up with these questions.
Mhm.
Hey, how can I say this differently? I think this is what it is. Help me. Right now, I'm going through a it is the word analyzation? Is that a real word?
Mhm.
Okay. if it's not-
Analyzation. Yeah.
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 All right, cool. So I'm going through an analysis.
Analysis.
We'll take that one.
Analysis.
That's a better use of. But I think analyzation
Analyzation is a word.
is a word.
It-
I
yeah.
think it's
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Well, it's
alright.
an analysis analyzation.
Okay.
Right. Going through an analyzation of my brand, right? Of We Create Music TV, and how I'm thinking about it. So I was in 1:00 at night in ChatGPT on this iPad in the bed. Hey, I want you to look up and define for me the strategy that Netflix used to build its platform initially, and then I would like for you to determine, what are the next steps that Netflix is looking to take? Because I'm building a platform that's kind of like Netflix for the independent music community.
Sure.
I want to know your strategy. What'd you do, Netflix?
Mhm.
I had ChatGPT go look it all up. It was why waste time going searching for everywhere to try to figure it out? ChatGPT, it just gave me the whole
Of
thing.
course.
The whole playbook.
The whole thing. Now it says, I said, then I want you to go look at my website, and then I want you to analyze my website based upon this information. Oh, I'm sorry, we don't have access to your website because my website is subscription based, right?
Mm.
So if you're watching, you want to see all of stuff, you got to subscribe to the community and join. That way you can have access to all other stuff. But anyway, it said, oh, I can't. But if you can, and it spit out all these questions. If you can answer all these questions for me, I can analyze it based upon what you provided against Netflix strategy.
Sure.
I was like, oh, about to do that.
Let's get it.
Like,
Let's get it.
Who knew that we would all have Iron Man's Jarvis
Yeah.
in 2024?
So nuts.
Exactly. Right. But I like this generative AI. Once again, I don't think it's AI like, the Terminator and, Miles Dyson and, Cyberdyne. I don't think it's like that. But
Yeah.
it is very helpful, right? Lander as an example,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Mhm.
Right. If I don't want to know, I don't know how to master.
That predates
I
Isotope.
barely know how to mix,
Mhm.
right? I don't know how to master. So if I have a song, get it mixed, throw it in Lander.
Sure.
Yeah.
It'll come up pretty
good.
good.
Yeah, pretty good.
The unknowing consumer wouldn't go, oh, this sounds muddy.
Of
Man.
course.
Or it's it's not panned appropriately. You don't have the right glue. They won't know that.
Man, man, I be talking to these students on a regular basis will really, 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 really humble you about like your perceptions about what is
Acceptable.
acceptable. Man, I'll be listening to some of their music and I was like, bro, why do you? So don't nobody care about mixing no more? Like, oh no,
I'm not.
oh no, praise nobody.
I don't care about mixing
Nobody
today.
care about that. We just like the vibes.
They told me
I
to
heard
my
somebody.
face.
I heard somebody say that
We
before.
just like the vibes. I was like,
That's a gut punch, man.
it really is. Like it's like that's so. Good for that artist. Like
That is absolutely what put the final nail in the coffin of me as a professional sound engineer. I watched my own kids that we were educating just be like, I mean, mixing is cool, but
the vibes.
that sauce was in the studio, when we recorded it. So, you can sauce it a little bit, but
Wow.
the mixes, that's cool. And I was just like, never again.
But your drums are clipping.
And they're just like, nah, bro,
No,
that's
that's
just
that's-
punch.
right.
It's
You know?
punch. This is mad distortion, bro, in here.
And they like, right?
Right. They're like, oh, yes, I
Yeah,
know.
no. Matter of fact, that's its own genre, right? Putting
I'm
a
sure
ton
it
of
is.
I'm
distortion.
sure it is.
I'm sure everything's a genre now.
Of course.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
Right.
It's how you sidestep things being wrong.
Right. Exactly.
You create a new lane.
You create a
for
new
it to
lane
be
for
right.
it to be.
There you go.
And for it to be right. You create a lane for it to be right. That's so
It's
crazy.
difficult to argue the efficacy of that. That has a point.
Right.
It has a point.
Right. No, I mean just
But that's like saying that when a car maker builds a car, they don't have to do quality checks on that car to ensure that it's the best product that they can give you.
I wish
right?
it was like that. The only difference is that cars can
But cars can kill you, right?
right.
If you're in an accident, you die, and they don't do quality checks.
I wish.
How else would you get a boltless plane experience if we did not have a line that offered boltless planes? See, now we've opened up a whole new market for
Barry Gordy is turning in his grave right now.
Right?
Well, hold on, Barry
100%.
Gordy, is he dead? Hold on, let me make sure I was Barry Gordy passed. Hey Siri, is Barry Gordy still alive? Because I don't want to say, bruh.
that's wild.
I said I want to make.
I found this on the web for Hey Siri, is Barry Gordy still alive? Because I don't want to say bruh. Check it out.
What is she talking
That's
about?
hilarious. She caught the whole thing.
She got the whole thing. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I'm like, Barry Gordy rolling in his grave. Like, wait, is Barry Gordy still alive though? Because
Is he not dead?
I don't want to be like, Vaughan said that Barry Gordy was dead and he's still alive. Like, dang.
Right, he's watching the podcast.
He's watching the
just
podcast. Like, yeah, I was about to come and
I was gonna come speak.
I was about to come and speak on your podcast, but you said I was dead. But nah, Barry Gordy's still alive.
Whoops.
I'm
Hey,
sorry.
big shouts out to Barry
I'm sorry,
Gordy.
Mr. Gordy. I don't even know why I said. I just threw it out there. That's crazy. It said, yeah, he's still 94 years old.
Wow.
Well, pushing on.
But somebody rolling in that grave may not be Barry Gordy, but
Somebody.
I had said Barry Gordy because, the whole Motown
Mm-hmm.
structure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, your stuff was not leaving. Sorry, Mr. Gordy. Your stuff was not leaving if it won't mix. It wasn't leaving if they didn't go through quality control.
Yeah.
It wasn't leaving unless everybody agreed that this song was a hit.
It.
We
Yeah.
don't have that.
No.
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 Nah.
No. Now you just
Yo,
have-
I'm gonna play my song for you. Think how you like it.
You got a culture that's willing to accept it in its raw format, which to an extent, cool.
It's just adapting to the new audience, unfortunately.
Yeah. To an extent, it's like, I mean,
Are there audiences that like distorted?
Without a doubt.
Muddy
there are.
music?
100%.
Unfortunately,
Oh,
yes.
yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's the vibe.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, if we're being honest, I mean, bass boosted has been a thing for a very long time.
It has.
That's
been.
fair.
Yeah, that's really fair.
So it's
right
not
there.
even like that's new.
But that's
That's-
one kind of distortion, though, to be fair.
Yeah, no, 100%. But it's just to say that
I mean, they still mixed it though.
purposefully mixing
They still-
something wrong for an added effect that you want is not
Is technically
new.
It's the textbook definition
Right.
of style.
Right.
Technically, you can, right? I'm sure if I was to take it back to my father, who's in his 70s, when rock and roll came out with electric guitars, I'm sure it was just kind of like,
Sure.
oh, to his father.
But
you know,
all my instruments at 0 dB, I don't know about that.
that's
no
tough.
headroom, there's none. I don't know. But who am I to say? Right?
There you go. I'm
Who am I
not
to
that
say?
audience.
I'm not that audience.
Exactly.
I don't mix. I don't master. I just went and learned from people who mix some of the biggest and best albums.
Without a doubt.
Right.
100%.
What was so crazy before we start to wrap up? What was so crazy about that whole interaction when I went to EI by Nelly and I was in that mixing class and we were talking about his discography because I didn't know who he was at first, and he went through his discography and was talking about who he mixed for and Extreme and Justin Timberlake and Michael Jackson. And I was like, oh yeah, I know a guy who mixed on Michael Jackson's album. He was like, yeah, you do. I said, yeah. I said, I learned mixing from him in Virginia.
Mhm.
He was like, okay. I said, yeah, his name is George Jr. Mayers. He was like, Junior? I said, yeah. He said, we worked on the Michael Jackson, I forgot what album, History, I think it was. We said, we worked on the Michael Jackson album together.
Mm.
I have not talked to him in years. You want to talk to him?
Mm.
He was like, yeah. Hey, Junior. Hey, what's going on, B? Hey, Carl, Carl? I said his last name. He was like, yeah. He want to talk to you. Bloop, put him on the phone. Oh, man. It was like that instant connection. But that was so cool that I could be a connector back to, two individuals who worked on
Sure.
projects together,
Right.
a history ago.
Sure.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that was, that was just a regular phone, but now,
Yeah. No, I mean, it's I think that there's something to be said about like those type of interactions and that type of camaraderie and that type of bonding that we have through pride of our work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to an extent that is being threatened with generative AI. With some of these
To a degree,
tools
yep.
being able to just kind of create a world and existence where that's not necessary anymore.
Mhm.
But as professionals, as business people, as entrepreneurs in this space, we learn oftentimes that you kind of have to be unemotional about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I think that this is just another one of those cases where it's like, what's the new market? If that's not a market
Right.
anymore, what is the new market? You know what I'm saying? Because we still have, we still got to figure out prompts. It just means that, all right, now
That's right.
I might not need to make this entire thing from scratch. But hey, if I need to, now, because I mean, a company who's doing sync for a film, they might not legally be able to go into those platforms and type it out. I'm sure legislation is going to kill that. Oh, they're going to lobby that to death.
They're gonna have to figure that out soon.
Without a doubt.
But it does not mean that I can't use it to make a reference track
Sure.
and then do something from scratch.
It doesn't mean that you can't go into Udio, create 50 songs and then have your own YouTube channel and then put it up as like a lo-fi mix and get paid
100%.
for it.
There you
And
go.
get it
100%.
monetized.
You know what I
But-
mean? So it's just about, okay, well, this is a tool now. There are ways it can be used, where it
Right.
can't be used. I can spend the next 10 years of my life being pissed off that it exists, or I can figure out how to integrate it into my workflow.
That's right. I mean, I think that's the bottom line. How do I integrate this into my workflow so that I could be as effective as possible? I'm gonna
Correct.
use that. That's my word for the night.
Because you can't turn
Effective
back
as-
time.
Can't turn.
It exists now, so
It's here.
Yep.
It ain't going nowhere.
No.
It's gonna stay.
sure is.
Sure is. Man, fellas, it's been unless y'all want to talk about the last one. Well, the last one is it's the last one I have on the list.
Yeah, we can
But-
knock it out.
The last one I have on the list is all about building a strong identity as an artist, right? We got to talk a little bit about it. Like, how do you, if I'm an artist, right? When you are talking to your students and they're talking about their brand as a creative, how do they do that? Is that, I don't know, is that important? If they don't want to mix, is branding even important? Is my identity as an artist important?
Ironically, I think that in an unbeknownst to them, I think brand and identity is probably the only thing they still care about. Like, I don't think, like, they don't see, like, when we say brand, we're talking about brand from the business perspective, right?
Yeah.
They don't really see it, obviously from the business perspective. Like, most of them, like, early on, they don't see the business of branding
Mhm.
because it's kind of complicated. And when we're talking about evaluation of one's brand, that can get,
I'm just talking about
they
like
can get lost in the
even just
weeds,
some of the
but-
simple stuff from an identity as a creative, right? So from the sense of branding and marketing from a business perspective, right? And I don't want to get into the whole thing like making sure your brand colors are consistent,
Mhm.
right? Your messaging is the same across all like your name should at least be the same
Right.
across all. I mean, I'm talking about like at that level of identity, not taking the time and sitting down about what's my purpose, who I really want to be as an artist, and what am I trying to achieve. I mean, just from a branding persona perspective and how I present myself to this music space.
Yeah, no, like I said, I definitely think that there's a lot of interest there, mostly because of, I think it really has a lot to do with social media. Is that when we start talking about those type of things and really laying that stuff out, I've seen more times than not they're willing to really soak that stuff up as a sponge. But of course, it still has to be taught. Yeah, that's gonna be where I kind of. Because because I'm on the business side of it, like so much more. I'm going so much deeper with everything else.
I'm going so much deeper with it. I'm talking about, your brand colors. Have you identified your brand colors?
Right.
How do those colors represent who you are as a, like, I know for me, like my brand colors is what I got on.
Right.
Black and red and gold. Right. So if you see me post stuff on Instagram, you're going to see in there, it's going to be black. It's going to be red. It's going to be some gold in there.
I think that when we're talking to students, especially when we're talking to students who are artists, oftentimes, this is gonna sound mean. This is gonna sound really mean, but I think oftentimes the first thing we have to, with a lot of them, because I mean it just is what it is. A lot of times we have to kind of break the news to them that a lot of what they're doing isn't very original or unique when they think it is. So we gotta tell them like, yo, like you look like 8 of the people who we just said no to. You know what I mean?
True.
Because you sound like, I mean, like okay. I don't know how I can tell a female singer more effectively that she cannot be the next Beyonce. I don't know, like Beyonce exists. There will never be another Beyonce. And if we're being honest about it, not even Beyonce can make another Beyonce. Like
right.
it's literally not possible. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's just it's
why
not
do you
want to
be you though? That's that's the big, just be you.
But see, that's the part, right? Like so many of them are so serious about being the people that they idolize that they don't realize that they have to be a peer of the person that they idolize, not a carbon copy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part about, we got to start with that conversation before we can even start the conversation about who you are. We have to talk about who you are not. You are not the second coming of your favorite artist.
No.
You're not. Like just the reality that is not a thing.
Nor does anybody want that.
Right.
You may think somebody wants that because that's what you want. But if I want Beyonce,
I'm going to get the original one.
I'm going to get the original. I'm going to go listen to Beyonce.
Mm-hmm.
If I want J. Cole, I'm going to go listen to J. Cole. I'm not going to listen to a person who sounds like.
Now, if you're trying to be a Beyonce impersonator, then
that's
maybe
different.
That's a whole different.
You want to be a Michael Jackson impersonator, Micro Jackson? I mean, that's a different thing.
Right.
Right? You understand that you're impersonating this person.
But you can't be.
You can't.
You can't follow their same.
You can only be you.
Mold. You can't try to make music that sounds like them. Like it's just not the way that. As far as I'm, authorized to be able to say based off my very limited knowledge of human psychology, I honestly don't think that that's possible or something that we as human beings would even gravitate to. It's like the moment I recognize you as a try-hard of this other person that I idolize, I'm actually probably more likely to have disdain for you than I am to embrace you.
Right.
As somebody who makes music like the person who I also look up to.
Yeah.
Like think about it. Like you don't think that could maybe be a little bit disrespectful to the Beehive to think that you have the audacity? You know what I mean? Like to me, that just seems like
I'm
common
the next
sense.
Beyonce. I'm the next Jay-Z. Well, how about do you be the next? Be you, because that person is already taken.
Right. So I think that, starting there, we start with helping everybody realize, helping every single artist and really every person, because every person is unique and their stories contribute to what it is that they offer and bring to the
Mhm.
table. Helping everybody realize that, be you, realize that these things that make your life and your journey unique enough to bring you to this moment in time right now is something that nobody else has lived.
Mhm.
But there are common themes in the lessons you've learned in approaching adulthood and approaching life that everybody can relate to, but you're gonna need to be able to communicate those things in a way that only you can.
Mhm.
And so that's where I'm saying, like, I'm gonna get really philosophical with this concept about branding and identity,
Right.
because so you identify that first and then you start to connect that with things. Because let's be honest, if I'm a very because that's where the other thing comes into, right? All right, so if I start to identify who I am and I realize I'm a very like somber, laid back, wavy type of individual, go with the flow type of individual, I probably, just probably, should not adopt a fiery red imagery in everything I do, right? Like I should
You're gonna be
probably,
exhausted trying to fulfill that.
you know
that
what I mean?
type of
I should,
persona.
if my actual message and vibe personally is laid back and chill, I probably shouldn't, I don't know, don like traditional like rock flames in all my music video. I don't know. You know what I mean? Maybe it's a thing.
I'm gonna be a rock star and I'm gonna
I
paint
don't.
my face and be out there with a guitar.
No, not even. I'm gonna be out there with a Rhodes a Rhodes keyboard singing. You know what I'm saying? Like Trey
I don't think
Songz.
that's
Maybe those two things don't go together. Maybe.
because naturally they are counter to who they are personally, right? There's a counter to that. And you hear I hear it a lot, especially from the space that I work in professionally in my real job. We have people who do the job that I do, but they are so laid back and chill that when they do it, it's 100% draining. It is absolutely counter to who they are. So that when they're done, they're like, I don't want to do that again.
Mhm.
But they have to wake up the next day and actually physically go do it again
Mhm.
because it's their job.
Right. And that's ultimately what it is that you would be signing up for
Exactly.
if you decide to express yourself in a way that's actually counter to what your true nature is.
That's right.
So,
But I think that's important. Identifying who you are as an individual, what you stand for as that individual, as that artist, right? Even partly to the point of an individual. Who are you individually? Who are you as a creative? And then you can go from that perspective. It's difficult to try to talk about identity if you really haven't that's weird, right? Identified who you really are and what you really stand for, what you really want to achieve.
Right.
I think the foundations has to start there, and then you can build on
right.
it with the rest of this other stuff, right? Like defining your overall brand and what message you want to put out there into the world, and visually and aesthetically, what does your brand look like, so that when you walk into a space, your brand is represented. When somebody looks at your social media, your brand is represented. When they look at your website, your brand is represented, and everything is consistent.
Right.
For me, that's the biggest thing. The consistency of a person's
Mhm.
brand.
And it is about consistency because it's a recognition that ultimately branding is really just an evolution of basic human communication. It's not complicated. It's just communication. The reason your brand needs to be consistent is because by it not being consistent, you are literally giving mixed signals.
So
You've been in a relationship giving mixed signals.
That ain't gonna work.
It ain't gonna
That's
work.
not gonna work. I love you today, but I don't love you tomorrow. That's not gonna work. So I would listen to I listen to this guy all the time. I like his name is Vusi. He's man, is a genius.
Gotta look it up.
He's over in Africa.
Okay.
Genius, right? So I was listening to him yesterday talk about McDonald's, and there was another company he mentioned, but more specifically McDonald's, and talking about a consistency in their brand as an organization,
Mhm.
right? And he asked the lady, he said, when you think about McDonald's, what do you think about? And she was like, what I think about is that no matter where I go and no matter what country I go to, I can go to a McDonald's in Japan and the hamburger and fries taste just like in America or in Europe or in wherever in Africa, right? It's the same,
Mhm.
right? So that when I go there, I know what I'm going to expect. I know that, you know, the fries and I don't really eat at McDonald's, so you know,
Right.
they taste the same, right? Same thing with a brand. If you have one way on Facebook, one way on Twitter, X, one way on Instagram, right? It's going to start to send mixed signals. Your brand is, for me, your brand is not consistent. So when I look at you, I'm like, this person's all over the place. I don't know if this person really knows who they are as an artist and what they truly want to achieve in their messaging. So when I used to coach artists, you know, especially ones that I would manage, that's what we started. Like, our first meeting was like 2 hours, 3 hours.
Has to be.
They were like, why are we still here? Because we need to talk about some stuff.
Mhm.
I would ask questions even like, especially any male or female. I remember I was talking to, before I even started, I'm going to say yes to managing you. You know, at least not you, but your career.
Mhm.
I have some questions. And one of the questions was, you got any baby mama drama?
Mm.
Like, because I'm not going to be on tour with you or doing something in the studio and all of a sudden the baby mama coming in acting all crazy or the baby daddy coming in acting all crazy. Do I got to worry about that?
It's a real question.
Legit.
Like, no, you ain't got to worry about that. Okay. Perfect. Like liar.
Sometimes
Liar. And then I found out that, you know, baby mama drama, but you had girlfriend drama though.
Yeah, because
Mhm.
exactly. Because
Exactly.
it's two sides of the same coin.
Two sides.
It's just not a baby yet.
It's not a baby.
That's the only difference.
It's not a baby yet, but it might as well be. I think as we, so Xavier, it looked like you wanted to say something in regards to the whole branding thing, brother. I want to kind of give you a platform to say what you wanted to say if there was any comments.
Yeah, sure. And I apologize for that. I can just get real quiet sometimes. I think it is kind of inevitable that everybody just starting out, including McDonald's, to go back to your point, everyone starts off to a degree derivative. You're always going to take off of whoever inspired you to get into the game, right? I think, as also you were saying, it always takes an analysis of why you like the things that you like that will help you come back and adapt that into what you need to keep from them and what you can let go to make room for more aspects of yourself. So I think the concept of kind of accruing all of the things of yourself into a brand so that you are wholly unique is unnecessary. I think you have to be derivative first. You have to take from somebody else first. You have to take from a bunch of people so that you can see what about those people you liked to begin with that got you into it. And over time, I feel if you're conscious of it, then you can start to strip away the things that don't really line up between who you are as a person and that brand that you essentially bit off of to get your brand started. And I think it is viable to, as we do with our students, say, you're not going to get this your first year.
Nope.
You're not going to know who you are, even if you're working at it and that's your sole purpose. Right. You will not be original as hard as you try, right? Work through that. Work beyond that first stage so that you can someday find who you're going to be and keep that on your radar. Keep it on your calendar to periodically do these kind of self-checks so that you can know for yourself who you're becoming as you're kind of diving into this. I had no idea who I was going to be as a photographer coming off of a decade of sound engineering. But whereas I started by just emulating my favorite photographers, now from jumping off and disagreeing with some of the decisions that those photographers made over time, now I know who I am as a photographer. Whereas if I would have just tried to come out making a statement of being Xavier Jones, who nobody knows, nobody cares about, nobody has any reference for what I've been through, nobody knows my life, it wouldn't, it still in its own way would have been just as undigestible as it is with me trying to be the photographers that I love, that people may be more familiar with. I think there is room for both. There is a time to be derivative, and there is a time to kind of separate yourself from what already exists, so that you don't end up being just a newer at best kind of generational copy of something that already exists.
Yeah. I do want to 100% second that, right? Like, in the sense where even in the statement that I do make about people coming in, and like we hear it all the time. We literally see it all the time, where they just sound like somebody else and they're literally trying to be this other person. What I would really like to point out to all independents out there is that oftentimes we're dealing with those people when they don't know that they are being that. And I think that that's the part where it's damaging, right? Like, to my partner's point, it's like there's nothing wrong with that, because at the end of the day, that's the culmination of life experience, right? Like, this is what you heard, this is what you like, this is what you resonate with. So of course that's the person that you idolize. The problem only occurs when you allow yourself to believe that you can just be that person, right? With and not really realizing what it means to
divert yourself,
to divert yourself, to be proud of being influenced by that person, but not be that person. Like, a part of it is the narratives that we hear, that I hear, oftentimes, is that I ask these artists, okay, well, who are your influences? And they say nobody, but they sound
like
exactly like somebody who, like, we all know. And it's like
really?
So you don't know. You don't know that you are taking,
because you think that there's something wrong with being able to say, oh, like, this person influenced my sound, or recognizing that, like, yo, like, that's a part of you, regardless of if that's not you. Like, it's that part where you're not willing to accept that, like, this music, this person, this style influenced who I am, and then take the next step and say, but how am I going to take it to a next level?
Indeed.
What am I going to add to this conversation? What am I going to add to this style? If you're not willing to have that conversation, then you're putting yourself in a really, really bad place, because you're not really being honest about who you are or where you're supposed to fit in this ecosystem that is the music industry.
Man, there's so many times I hear artists who sound just like this artist, and sometimes I get confused.
Right.
Like, I listen to a song, like, is that or is that? No, and they're like, oh, that's not even that person, or that other person who I thought it was, but they sound so alike, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah. But it is that individuality, right? It's taking that and saying, I get the whole looking up to someone and identifying components that you align with to say, okay, those types of personality traits in that individual as an artist or as a person, those resonate with me, right? And those are the ones that I can adopt to say, okay, I would like to be able to do that, because regardless if we admit it or not, we all have someone or someones that we have seen, and we try to mimic or imitate the behaviors or actions that they have done, right? But as you're stating, we have to be able to take that and say, but how do I apply myself to that, right? Or even if you see a person on a journey, right? Well, that's their journey, right? You can't necessarily follow that same path. How can I take my own path but apply some of the things that they've done to it
Indeed.
Yeah.
without trying to say I am doing exactly what they were doing and how they were doing it.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think for anybody watching, the overall message is understanding who you are as a person, understanding and being really clear on who you are as a music creative. I trust me, I get it, because when I was a producer, I went, I'm gonna make beats just like,
Yeah.
Just Blaze or that was I'll make beats just like Timbaland. But I didn't put no babies in my song. I didn't put any no Godzillas in there. No beatboxing, even though I tried it all, right? I made beats almost try to make just like it. But then I found my own sound. And I was like, oh, I actually really like this type of music.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just make what I like. And if other people like it, great. And I didn't have to try to be like somebody else because that person already existed. So let me just do me.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
Man, fellas, it's been
Always.
great.
Man.
Been great. I love the my first time meeting Xavier. I love his intellectualism. Is that a word? I'm always making words up. Okay. He'll let me. I love his intellectualism, and he's using words that you don't hear other people use. Efficacy. I'm like, oh. And see, for me, I know what these words are, right? Because I use these words in my actual real day. When I get off work, I don't talk like I talk at work, right? That's the code switching that takes place, right? When I'm at work, you'll hear me speak all of. Oh wow, because I'm talking to like business leaders, CEOs of companies.
Sure.
Right? They don't want to hear me talk about what's good, like right? Nah, so I'm talking.
Right.
But I do. I picked it up as we were chatting tonight. Like I love his intellectualism. Like I love how he's saying certain words and how he's emphasizing and putting up. I like that.
It's so funny. I don't even hear it anymore. My sister was an English major, so
there you go.
Literally, yeah.
Once again, you pick up the behaviors of the people that you're around.
Always.
So yeah, fellas, it's been great.
Man, thank you for
It's been
having
an
us.
honor.
Yes.
Oh, anytime. Look, anytime we need to kick this off, we do a podcast every Friday on different topics. Wait till we get to the podcast next week. I got a guy that's coming in he's about to blow it. I already know. I already know. Kelby's gonna kill it. Oh my gosh, so I'm bringing in
Kelby
Kennick.
Oh yeah.
Making it.
Yeah.
Oh, we about to make this podcast. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I hit him up like, Kelby, I need you to come. He was like, just send me the invite. I'll be there. I like, all right, bet. It's gonna be on tomorrow. Next Friday. But appreciate it, brothers.
Man, thank you
once again.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, music creatives, thanks for tuning in once again to the Indie Unplugged. Make sure you join the community. Just go to WeCreateMusic.tv and you have access to all types of stuff. Sync Masters actually will be out by the time this is out. But our own original programming that we offer, Sync Masters, which will be out on Monday. So I'm looking forward to that. Exclusive, just for the community. If you're not part of the community, you won't be able to see it. Just like if you ain't signed up for Netflix, you can't see your favorite Netflix stuff. So
Yes,
or The Ring of Power, which I can't wait to come out. But anyway, thanks for tuning in. Peace out, ladies and gentlemen.
Dose.